Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. So today we're going to be going over a large penguin discovery as well as what's going on with a species of new hadrosaur and taking a look at wildlife populations over in Norway. And we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. So let's dive probably back into some part of the Cenozoic era. So, from Sci News, ancient giant penguin unearthed in New Zealand, Crossvalia yparensis. The fossilized bones of a large sized penguin species that lived during the Paleocene epoch between 66 and 56 million years ago have been discovered in New Zealand. Hmm. So I wonder what Kowalski has up for us. There's two. Oh, wait. No, that's not the actual.
Awfully small.
Yeah, that's these definitely aren't emperors. I don't know. I don't think they're Gen 2 penguins. Honestly, I have no clue. So named Crossvalia yparensis, the ancient penguin was about 5.2 feet or 1.6 meters tall, taller than today's 4 foot or 1.2 meter emperor penguin, and had a mass of between 70 to 80 kilograms, or that's pushing somewhere between like 150 and 170 pounds. Now, the interesting thing is, if the largest emperor penguins to exist, and specifically the males, also, this being the largest living species of penguin, can reach somewhere around 4 foot 10, possibly. Or what is that? Pushing like around 1.3, 1.4 meters. So they can become slightly taller and maybe weighing at most around 90 to 100 pounds or pushing somewhere between 40 to 45 kilograms.
Wait, are you talking about the emperor?
Yeah, today's current emperor penguin. I do wonder when it comes to these different species of penguin whether or not they would have fed on similar types of smaller microscopic organisms. Well, in some cases, you wouldn't necessarily call them microscopic, but just like different Antarctic krill, um, even smaller species of fish in the region, which I would assume is very likely, considering in some cases if you're looking at the species that didn't necessarily have teeth in some instances, but even for the ones that did, I just assumed they would have fed on similar aquatic organisms. So its leg bones and two ends of the humerus, so the thigh bone, were unearthed by amateur paleontologist Leigh Love at the Wipara Green Sand Fossil Site in 2018.
Okay, is this AI or is this real?
Hmm. I don't know. Wait a second. No, it's fake because all of the penguin chicks would be around the same size. You wouldn't have this type of an age gap.
Oh, that's a chick. I didn't realize it. I figured it was the female.
Yeah.
Okay. That.
That could possibly be real. Um, yeah, it probably is. There's something off about like the skull of the chick, but he is getting to that point where he's going to stay outside of the mother's like pouch area for the most part. Okay, let's take a deeper look. Dr. Gerald Mayer from the Seckenberg Natural History Museum and colleagues analyzed the bones and concluded they belonged to a previously unknown penguin species. They concluded that the bird's closest known relative is a fellow Paleocene species. Oh, wait a second. How old did it say this was? Oh, 66 and 56 million years ago. Wow. This is right after the dinosaur mass extinction or the end of the Cretaceous or Mesozoic era, about 66 million years ago. So this is during the Paleocene epoch.
Melissa says hi.
Welcome, fellow theropod dinosaur. And yes, in fact, when it comes to the giant penguins, in fact, all species of birds during the Paleocene epoch, just like today's, were avian dinosaurs. So they did survive, or their ancestors did survive the mass extinction. Let's see. They concluded, okay, it's a fellow Paleocene species, Crossvalia uneinwilia, which was identified from a fossilized partial skeleton found in the Cross Valley in Antarctica in 2000. So, finding closely related birds in New Zealand and Antarctica shows our close connection to the icy continent, said Dr. Dr. Paul Schofield, a paleontologist at Canterbury Museum. Okay, let's go back in time slightly and bring up a species of dinosaur that would have roamed, I'm assuming, a nearby area on the Antarctic continent. Or else I should say frozen continent. Antarctopelta. So um, ARCTO. No, I guess he's slightly more renowned now. He should
Well,
be like
this definitely doesn't look like a penguin.
So this is going to take place somewhere around 72 million years ago during the late Cretaceous period. So this was actually back before a wide variety of dinosaurs would evolve, at least for the last few
Is this
million years.
correct?
Probably. Though in some reconstructions, Antarctopelta tends to be shown with more elongated spikes along its tail. That is interesting though, with the elongated spikes towards the upper shoulder blades. In some instances, yeah, this individual is given both very elongated osteoderms, similar to an early Cretaceous species that inhabited the United States around 112 million years ago, called Sauropelta. And but when it comes to the club tail on this, I'm not sure if we have evidence for Antarctopelta having this type of a characteristic. In fact, when it comes to any species of Nodosauridae, which is what this animal is a part of. Well, actually, I think it's up for debate, possibly. I think it's actually,
There's a flat tail.
yeah, a bit of a question. No, that's not him. This is specifically like an ankylosaur. Like it looks very much like certain species of Mongolian and Chinese ankylosaurs, as well as over in Canada and the United States during the late Cretaceous. But well, even the early Cretaceous to an extent. But when it comes to specifically Antarctopelta, this animal would have had several types of elongated osteoderms, or at least in different types of shapes. These are all very different. I think it's because it's a bit fragmentary in some instances when it comes to the overall armor that has been preserved of this smaller ankylosauromorph, which I think is definitely the basic sort of terminology that can be used for this herbivore. But it's just a huge debate, considering the types of specimens that we have discovered of this species, as to what specific herbivorous ankylosaur group it belongs to. But it's quite small within like different lake, or at least compared to different late Cretaceous species. You could say it's probably average or large for the early Cretaceous period, at least before like 125 million years ago,
What
and even during the late Jurassic.
what does that look like? Hiccup?
You mean toothless?
Yeah, toothless.
Um, yeah, it does. I wouldn't doubt that were some ideas taken from the dragon, but in some cases, you could say this in certain ways might actually be a bit more um I'm not sure if it's necessarily more common when it comes to the reconstructions. I actually prefer the others. It's not bad. It does definitely retain that type of osteoderm armor along the upper shoulder blades, the upper humerus or the thigh area, even along the rib cage, and also including the spikes along the forearm or like the ulnar region, which is not surprising with the different types of ankylosauromorphs. But I don't believe we have found necessarily enough evidence to suggest that also these types of very elongated, not necessarily spikes, but maybe just simply osteoderms along the core of the body, where it's not necessarily surprising, especially if it's a nodosaur, to see it along the whole tail or the majority of it in this instance. Um, Also, it is being shown with very long spikes, or at least very elongated osteoderms along its skull. That's not usually a nodosaur trait, but there have been certain species we have found with smaller horn-like structures. They're just not as wide of a build as what you see in members of Ankylosauridae. Here,
Mr.
let's go
Cash
back.
says, "Hello."
Oh, definitely not him. Okay. Welcome, fellow theropod. This is definitely a species of prey that not also many species of theropod dinosaurs would have come upon, considering at least from the late Cretaceous at this moment, we haven't found many species of dinosaurs. There does seem to be a certain type of hadrosaur from the 1970s that was discovered over in Antarctica, but it hasn't been identified since then. So, also, when it comes to the size of Antarctopelta, it's not reaching much more than maybe 14 feet or pushing around 4.2 meters. So you could say in some instances it was a bit of a um, like a small or I guess like the larger. It's a larger ankylosaurimorph for the smaller species. But you had different types of ankylosauromorphs that were weighing well over 5 tons. They weren't too common, but definitely over in different parts of Asia and North America. Also to a certain point South America, but they were a bit smaller on that continent. They were present, but not so much in Antarctica. So this animal was not a carnivore. It was feeding on different species of flowers that existed on Antarctica at that point, as well as different species of ferns. This was definitely quite a lush continent compared to today, as there aren't really any plants in Antarctica today. Also, this animal doesn't seem to have roamed into Australia, unlike earlier species of ankylosauromorphs or certain nodosaurs that would have traveled back and forth from Antarctica to Australia. At least
Right.
back in the early Cretaceous, like 108 to 112 million years ago.
Why do I feel like I'm looking at a squirrel?
Yeah, this is one of the probably more typical sort of reconstructions of the Antarctopelta, because I was quite shocked with those elongated osteoderms. I was thinking, I mean, maybe we found a more recent specimen of this animal, and we just now know it has like sauropelta types of spikes. And okay, maybe um, that was mixed with something else. Though none of these, if let's say it is a nodosaur, because it has very nodosaur-like traits, not so much of, like, members of Ankylosauridae. Um, yeah, I mean, this does somewhat look, pretty typical, but I guess okay, never mind. This is like the other. I wonder it could be just a huge debate at this point. I'll definitely have to do, deeper analysis, like, specifically, like, what parts of the armor we've discovered and what other species this could actually be, representing. Okay. Well, also when it comes to the weight, I think this animal didn't really reach much more than maybe 500 pounds or pushing somewhere around 230 kilograms. So it was probably like you could basically have this as a pet. Now, if its armor was
A
like,
230-kilogram pet.
well, yeah, why not? Horses can get bigger.
Well,
Um,
I wouldn't wanna try to ride this thing. Something would be sticking up your butt.
maybe. If he's like that other, the green one, he might be rideable. Just definitely be careful with the tail.
Well, I guess this one would be.
Yeah, he could be. Maybe just put like a protective leather covering on his elongated shoulder blade spikes. So let's see. Considering I think they did that in like Dinotopia. Okay, so finding closely related birds in New Zealand and Antarctica. Oh, I already said that. So when the Crossvalia species were alive, New Zealand and Antarctica were very different from today. Antarctica was covered in forest and both had much warmer climates. Yeah, that was Antarctica and New Zealand for a long time. They did go through a wide variety of just warmer periods. Wait a second. What on earth is this him? He is huge. He's kind of fat too, which is not surprising for a penguin. Wow. I mean, it did say what? Maybe up to like 180 pounds. That is massive. 170, 180. The leg bones of both Crossvalia penguins suggest their feet played a greater role in swimming than those of modern penguins, or that they hadn't yet adapted to standing upright like modern penguins. Crossvalia yprensis is the fifth ancient penguin species described from fossils uncovered at the Waparia Greensand site. The Wapara Green Sand is arguably the world's most significant site for penguin fossils from the Paleocene epoch. The fossils discovered there have made our understanding of penguin evolution a whole lot clearer. There's more to come too. More fossils, which we think represent new species, are still awaiting description. Okay, so let's bring up another species from further back in time in Antarctica. So the Imperobator, Imperobat,
EAT?
BAT.
BAT.
Yeah. OR. This animal was also roaming Antarctica at around the same time as Antarctopelta. So this might be around 71 million years ago during the Maastrichtian stage of the Cretaceous. And this is a species of, well, actually, technically, it's very much up for debate as to what specific lineage of the Maniraptorans or the Coelurosaurs this could be a part of. It is likely a member of Dromaeosauridae, but just what specific? Well, more specifically, it could be a member of Unulanginae. So it's possibly a close relative of like the different species of osteoraptors or Unulangans that we have discovered over in South America, especially over in Argentina and Brazil. And those animals existed as far back as like 90 million years ago during the early late Cretaceous period. So though certain reconstructions of Imperobator, especially like what we saw in Prehistoric Planets with the former two pictures and even this incident, show us as having like a much more robust sort of Dromaeosaurus type of a build. Whereas there are other reconstructions that make it much more lightly built, like quite a thin and narrow skull, which is very Unalangan like, and, also in some cases you have it where it's not showing a toe claw, and then others it's, this raptor does consist of a sickle claw. Now, um, if it didn't have a sickle claw, then this would be one of the only species of dromaeosaurs or, um, yeah, I guess Meniraptorans in this lineage to not have that type of a characteristic because most of them did consist of sickle claws. However, when you look at the Unulangans, they're very small, like the sickle claw itself on their foot, compared to their body size. At least when comparing it to other members of Dromaeosauridae, we'll say that this guy looks fat. Like and he's got like a very stocky sort of a stature. What is this thing? It's like somebody took a bird of today of some sort. Like maybe I'm not sure. Like a guinea fowl, maybe a chicken or a ptarmigan, and then mixed it in with a dromaeosaur. And even the shrew, or maybe one of the earlier ancestors to certain types of mammals of today, is not even concerned. He's just walking by because he knows that this animal is too sluggish in reaction. Um, but I mean, I guess the rest of the scenery is okay, considering this is what Antarctica would have looked like, even back into the Jurassic. Now, in the early Jurassic, so around 190 million years ago, it's likely that it really wouldn't have become too cool at all back then. It was quite warm. In fact, you could even say hot. Um, but at this point in the Cretaceous, it had cooled down quite a bit. So you even had cooler temperatures over in the northern hemisphere, like different parts of northern Asia, Europe, and even Canada and Alaska. But yeah, it's still a huge debate. I would say these guys might look a little too Dromaeosaurus like. Okay, where were we? So the discovery of a second giant penguin from the Paleocene epoch is further evidence that early penguins were huge, said Dr. Vanessa de Pietri, also from Canterbury Museum. It further reinforces our theory that penguins attained a giant size very early in their evolution. Now, usually when you hear of penguin species, like immense types of that were larger than today's emperor penguin, king penguin. King penguins are actually much smaller than the emperor. They're not usually reaching much more than maybe 50 pounds or a little over 20 kilograms.
Wait, emperors could get to what?
100 is possible, or pushing 45 kilograms.
So it'd make for a good meal.
Um, no, I I didn't really enjoy Happy Feet the movie. I only like the leopard seals in it. But okay, March of the Penguins, that was good. Um, but no penguins. Let's see. Wait, hold on a second. Oh, so when it comes to giant penguins in general, like we have species that could reach somewhere around 6 to 7 feet in height, or pushing around 2.1 meters. They're usually like from the Pliocene epoch, the Miocene, so somewhere between like 3 to 23 million years ago. But in this case, this is right after the extinction of the dinosaurs. So during the Paleocene, this is quite astonishing. It's in a way not surprising because you had different types of larger birds occurring at this point in different parts of Europe and North America. In fact, here, for example, actually, let's bring one up. The diatryma. So Diatryma. This is not a penguin, a very distant relative, but it is a bit of a mystery as to what specific branch of birds it might have evolved from the Cretaceous period, because this is a descendant of those birds that survived. It was inhabiting probably like the later Paleocene epoch and even to the Eocene, probably around 58 to 60 million years ago. So technically, there was a long time for evolution to make giant steps in size.
Is this HMNS?
Yep. So this animal could reach somewhere around maybe 6 to 6.6 feet in height, or somewhere between like 1.8 to 2 meters, and probably weigh like somewhere around 250 pounds, maybe slightly more, or pushing somewhere around 100 to 120 kilograms. But there were earlier theories to this animal being quite carnivorous and feeding on like some of the earliest species of horses to exist. Other earlier branches of mammal, like earlier ancestors of like the proboscideans or even the elephant family. Certain like somewhat like hippo and tapir like animals at the time, but were a bit more distantly related to them. But further analysis, especially on specifically the beak, you could even include the toes too, really shows that this animal isn't meant for, it seems in some cases, really high pursuit, but also um, easily disemboweling its prey, especially with its beak. It's quite dull. It is quite robust, however, but this is more of a beak that you would see probably being used for like opening coconuts, different types of just nuts in general, different types of seeds. So it was an herbivore. At least that is the theory. And also, it has quite small arms compared to its body size. Many members of its lineage, for some reason, evolved these short limbs.
It looks like a what's it called? Flamingo.
Yeah, this isn't Diatryma. Now, maybe it's an earlier reconstruction, but he doesn't have that type of a curved beak. Even with the extra keratin added on to the beak, it wouldn't look like this. It would just simply maybe be even a bit more straightforward or elongated. But this more resembles a later species of like forest rocket terror birds further into the Cenozoic era, but not the Diatryma. Yeah, this is him. Oh, this also seems to be like a bit of an earlier painting, possibly. But yeah, it's showing, I guess, a mother with her chicks, but they were likely just feeding on different types of seeds, nuts. They probably might have now and then gone after like amphibians or reptiles, maybe certain types of insects, but that would pretty much be it. I wouldn't doubt that maybe insects and like animal protein in general were probably a larger part of the chick's diet compared to the adults. Just simply didn't need it for their anatomy, especially their bone structure. Okay, I guess let's head forward or possibly backward in time. So, to the Mesozoic era. From Sci News, shovel billed dinosaur roamed Texas 80 million years ago. A new genus and species of primitive hadrosaur dinosaur named Aquilorhinus palamentis has been identified from fossils found in Big Bend National Park, Texas, the United States. Well, look at this guy. This is a very distinct type of a beak structure for hadrosaur in general. This is not normal. I wouldn't necessarily call them their beaks smooth, but technically they were compared to this. This is very serrated. It's almost like you're looking at like a mussel or a clam, and then it has cookie cutter shark serrated edges. Let's see. So, Aclorhinus palamentis belongs to the Hadrosauridae or duckbill dinosaurs, a group of plant-eating ornithopod dinosaurs from the Cretaceous period. The fossilized remains of the dinosaur were collected in the 1980s to 90s from the Aguja Formation in southwestern Texas. They were analyzed by paleontologists from Texas Tech University and the Institut Català de Paleontologia Miquel Crucifont, Barcelona, Spain. Hadrosaurs were the most common herbivorous dinosaurs at the end of the Mesozoic era and all had a similar looking snout. Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, when you look at different species of hadrosaurs in general, they tend to look quite similar. So that is quite strange. Well, I mean, I think it looks really good, however. Um, okay, so let's bring up another species. So the Coahuilosaurus. So Coahuilasaurus. This is definitely a very distinct species of hadrosaurid. So this animal lived over in Mexico about probably around 72 million years ago. So I think about 8 million years after Aquilorhinus was existing. It seems to be specifically a member of Saurolophinae, so the Saurolophinae lineage of hadrosaurs. So this animal, in some cases, I mean, when looking at it closely, does have certain types of builds, especially along the upper jaw structure, similar to animals like Parasaurolophus, the long crested hadrosaur from Jurassic Park. Now, especially when you're looking at like the upper jaw to an extent, like even overall, um, guess the bottom jaw too. Oh, but also when it comes to the forelimbs, especially the foot, is very much similar to animals like Parasaurolophus. But when looking at specifically this animal, it probably reached somewhere around 30 feet in length or pushing 9 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 2 to 3 tons and was likely feeding on different species of ferns, flowers in the area, smaller types of shrubs, probably occasionally going after different species of conifers. It is a bit of a mystery as to what species of theropod dinosaurs might have hunted this animal, considering many of the species that we have discovered from this time, especially like Daspletosaurus, Gorgosaurus, Albertosaurus, has really already gone extinct at this point. You could possibly say the same thing for Gorgosaurus, but Daspletosaurus is discovered much further north in like different areas of Montana, Alberta, Mexico is quite far south, so it's a mystery as to what animals or, especially the larger theropods, might have hunted it. And even when it comes to the dromaeosaurs, so I would say for different types of late Cretaceous dinosaurs in Mexico, it's a bit sporadic when it comes to the different types of discoveries, but possibly also created like a low frequency sound similar to Parasaurolophus, a very heavily built species of hadrosaur. Front of the jaws meet in a U shape to support a cupped beak used for cropping plants. The beak of some species is broader than in others, but there was no evidence of a significantly different shape and therefore likely also different feeding style in duckbills until Ochlorhinus palamentis was discovered. The lower jaws of Ochlorhinus palamentis meet in a peculiar W shape, creating a wide flattened scoop. Yeah, that is odd. If you look at the upper part of the front part of the bottom jaw, no, not from that angle, but I guess you could somewhat tell.
It
No, you
looks like a
can't.
scoop.
Um, yeah, I guess you
Are we
could
talking
say.
about this?
No, well, we are talking about that part of the jaw, but I was looking here, like right in the front. Also, wow, actually, this hmm, I don't think they've identified like, well, maybe they have in recent years because slightly further back. But I'm wondering if it is a member of possibly Saurolophini.
Semester 21 says hi. 27, sorry.
Well, hello, fellow Carcharodontosaur. So, also, Carcharodontosaurs did not feed on this animal. They also went extinct about 10 to 12 million years beforehand, and also never made it into North America, it seems, unless there might have been. Actually, that's not true. Acrocanthosaurus would definitely try to. Um, he would be on a rampage because he's been discovered over in North Carolina and Texas. It was a 40-foot long, 7-ton theropod. But that's just a very odd bottom beak shape. But the rest of the animal is quite slender. Very long forearms compared to its body size. Like even when compared to the hind limbs, that is quite astonishing. That's not usual. And wow. So, this new animal is one of the more primitive hadrosaurids known and can therefore help us to understand how and why the ornamentation on their heads evolved, as well as where the group initially evolved and migrated from. So, Dr. Albert Prieto Marquez, a paleontologist in the Institute Català de Paleontologia, Michael Crucifont. Its existence adds another piece of evidence to the growing hypothesis still up in the air that the group began in the southeastern area of the United States. That's because in recent years we have found many more species of hadrosaurs popping up in different states within the southeastern United States, as well as like different types of hadrosaurs from Alabama. I think maybe certain fragmentary remains coming in from possibly Tennessee, definitely like North Carolina area and possibly into Virginia. So, also I believe, oh, New Jersey is also well known for certain types of hadrosaurs. Possibly Delaware. Okay. Oh, there was another creature. Um, distinct dinosaur. I want to bring up the Vega Ceratops. So VAGACERAT.
I don't think I've ever seen these.
Yeah, so this animal was inhabiting Alberta, Canada around 76 million years ago. So it did come into contact with different species of tyrannosaurs or theropod dinosaurs like Albertosaurus. And this animal definitely has a lot of issues compared to other species of ceratopsian horned dinosaurs that it coexisted with. So this animal belongs to the same family of dinosaurs, such as or that later species like Triceratops and Torosaurus would eventually evolve into. But this animal does not have the large, distinct eye socket horns of its later relatives. In fact, even of certain other species of the time. And even when it comes to its snout horn, which you could say is longer compared to a wide variety of species of ceratopsians, it still wasn't very large. So really its main defense is like its frill, but it's very possible when it comes to the nasal horn. Yeah, it's very wide. So
Is that a
likely
toy?
oh yeah, I think it is. Was it from like I forgot which company. But okay, so it's very likely this animal had just a very wide nasal horn, and that could easily, I mean, if hit correctly, puncture a tyrannosaur, definitely totally crush a dromaeosaur because they were also coexisting with different species of raptors or dromaeosaurs in the region. Now, likely the dromaeosaurs were going after smaller Vegaceratops individuals or like very likely hatchlings. And also, they just weren't built to withstand or fight something this large because we're still talking about an animal that was probably pushing somewhere around 18 to 20 feet or maybe like 5.3 to 6 meters and probably weighed at least 1.5 tons. So it would easily crush a 40-pound raptor or a dromaeosaur. And the other species in the area, especially like Sornitholestes, but that animal tend to, or is really only discovered over in Alaska. So Vegaceratops probably didn't even come into contact with it. I mean, it's possible, but Vegaceratops was likely just fending off other species of tyrannosaurs. And also, when it comes to the frill of this animal, along the upper area, it's very distinct when it comes to its horn like structure, considering almost all of them, besides the ones on each corner of the upper frill, are pointing downwards towards the eye sockets, which is not a common characteristic with many species of ceratopsians. You do have certain others, especially members of the Chasmosaur family of ceratopsids, that would have it where certain horns on the top of the frill do point towards the ground, but it's only a handful. And the rest, some parts of the frill are actually bare of horns. And on other species, they're simply much taller and facing towards the sky. Also, I guess you could say that the side horns that you would see, or they definitely would protrude a lot more on certain smaller, earlier species of ceratopsians, have shrank, but are still they're still quite visible and could pose or be used as a weapon on the species. So it is a member of the Chasmosauridae lineage of ceratopsians, which is the same lineage that animals like Chasmosaurus and Triceratops would be a part of. So also when it comes to like the feet of this animal, they are somewhat wide compared to its body size. And this is not necessarily an abnormal characteristic when it comes to ceratopsians, considering many of them would have inhabited different marsh and swampy sort of landscapes. The frill also would have been filled with a series of thick tissue, considering you have it where the fossil shows it as having two complete gaps. And there might be like certain representations where there wouldn't have been any tissue, and all of the ceratopsians with that type of characteristic would have had a dense amount of tissue within the frill itself. And that would have also helped protect its neck from the different theropods and even other ceratopsians attacking it. So this animal is one of the more primitive hadrosaurs. Oh, I
Wait,
think I already said that.
yeah, but
Oh, I think I already finished it.
oh,
Okay. Okay, let's dive further into the Cenozoic era. So from Nina.no, wildlife overpass in Trondheim, Norway enhances habitat connectivity. New findings from Wildlife Crossing over European Route E6 in Trondheim, Norway provide valuable insights into the effectiveness of wildlife overpasses. So we're looking at the ancestral lands of Dolph Lundgren and so over in Trondelag. So let's see. Wow. Oh, wow. Shucks. You guys made a huge overpass. I wasn't expecting this. I was also thinking because, Norway is so much smaller compared to the United States, like you were just going to make sure it's the minimal amount of land. But then again, it is for the animals. Wow. I'm actually astounded. You have a 4-lane highway. Um, okay. Anyway, besides that, so the overpass at Lursbakken outside Trondheim, Norway. The construction of large infrastructure such as highways is okay. Let's get to the good stuff. I will say, if we're looking at Trondelag, so this is basically over in central Norway. There are around 6 to 8,000 roe deer that are harvested annually, but I don't know like the specific
Wait,
population because it's
is
not.
harvested just being killed, or does it mean that they're eating them?
Yeah,
I
I
thought
think it just
harvested was eating.
no, I think harvested just means killed. I do have to I should double check that, but um, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it means. I would think that would mean consumed, or they would put that out there. So, by advancing our understanding of wildlife responses to mitigation measures such as overpasses, we will contribute to more effective conservation planning in the face of infrastructure development, says Lars Rod Eriksson.
Hunted and processed for meat.
Oh, okay. Wow. Um, well, I'm mentioning that because I can't find the. There are certain parts of the world but especially when it comes to like let's just say Western countries where, especially if you're looking at different districts, counties, regions, you can find the amount of animals of a certain species, like roe deer or red deer, for instance, um, Rocky Mountain elk over the U.S. that have been harvested, but you can't find like the estimate for the population. But in many cases, the harvests can help, um, or they do help come up with an estimate as to how many, per se, in this instance, roe deer are out there. But I believe when it comes to red deer specifically, this county has like the third highest in Norway. So I think it's pushing some around 8 to 9,000 red deer within Trondelag. So, as part of the expansion of the European Route E6 to a 4-lane highway outside Trondheim, Norway, a wildlife overpass was constructed along the new route. To assess wildlife movement between habitats on either side of the highway, experts from NINA conducted systematic monitoring using wildlife cameras from late autumn 2020 to May 2023. It is interesting. So apparently, we got a researcher in here that is possibly related to Leif Erikson, who is the Norwegian Viking that discovered North America. So during the monitoring period, researchers recorded more than 3,500 wildlife crossings. The majority of observations, 84%, were of roe deer. Wow. Capreolus, and red fox. Vulpus. Um, I mean, that's still good to hear too. I actually forgot about the European red foxes over here. Great little lads. So while larger cervids such as moose, alcis, and red deer, Cervus elaphus, accounted for approximately 8% of the recorded crossings. Combined? Whoa, that is kind of small, but I guess technically I don't know where precisely this is, but it's at Trondheim. So that's towards the coast, like adjacent to I believe like the central, more northern area of the North Sea. So this result corresponded well with the species composition in the surrounding areas. Real quick, let's look up some mountain reindeer, considering they're in the area. Um, Yeah, also when it comes to like Norway's, but like in different parts of the mountainous areas, there have been different species of Pleistocene or Ice Age animals that have been discovered here too. But in some cases, big fragmentary. So yeah, this could be a mountain reindeer from central or southern Norway. When it comes to the reindeer population within the country, the wild reindeer population, in total, I believe it's somewhere between 28 to 35,000 animals. Now, the interesting thing is about Trøndelag, Norway specifically, is that it contains nearly half the population. However, there's like an extra, okay, so there's like 14 to 15,000 mountain reindeer within Trøndelag, but there's also another like 15 to 16,000 of these semi domesticated reindeer. Um, which I don't believe are the same
Is that real?
subspecies. Yeah, there's something off of. Oh yeah, his antlers. Also, I mean, it's possible you can have that much snow on the ground when they're in the rut of like late September and early October, but um, yeah, it seemed a bit off. Oh yeah, he's a good-looking specimen. Wow, are we sure this isn't like one of those North American bulls?
It says mountain reindeer.
Oh, it could be. Um, you do have it where, when it comes to reindeer or caribou, you can call the males are referred to as bulls. So, also like the females referred to as cows. And yes, when it comes to specifically reindeer, the females or this is the only species of deer that we know of, and I believe even when it comes to prehistoric species, um, that you have it where the males and the females grow antlers. And yes, the females do shed them annually as well. They just don't really use them for the most part when it comes to like fighting each other, but it can occur.
It says reindeer on a lot of them, but mountain reindeer is much harder to find.
I wonder where he is. I think he's definitely in a different part of the country. Well, this might be just somebody's. Oh, that's a female. Yeah, that's about the size of their antlers. Yeah, this is an authentic picture. Um, maybe it's somewhere in like the lowlands. They're a bit smaller than certain subspecies of North American reindeer, but they're definitely up there with the probably 3 to 500 pound realm, or somewhere between like 140 kilograms to maybe 230 kilograms.
This is northern Norway.
Huh. Probably central or northern central Norway because there aren't really any trees up there. Interesting. Yeah, I tend to yeah, these are the semi-domesticated reindeer. Which I mean they're fine.
But on the short version, it's a lot. The picture's much larger on the main stream.
Were there any like semi-domesticated reindeer with like the bells and they're kind of decorated with certain clothing? I think in Norway alone there might be pushing some around a million semi-domesticated reindeer. Like, especially, quite large populations over towards Finnmark and was it Telegamark?
Wait, he doesn't, but I like the picture.
Oh, whoa! Oh, he's a piebald if this is a real one. He's a piebald reindeer.
It says mountain.
This isn't like a video game. These are actual reindeer?
Uh,
Something about it looks like it could be from a video game because it almost has like a cow sort of face. I mean, they all are ungulates, so both like oryx or, beef, dairy cows, um as well as like different species of deer. They all are two-toed ungulates. Who could this be? It's like a red deer that's just starting to grow his antlers. Yeah, he looks very cozy. Is that somebody stuck a ball of yarn and with a little bun on top of it? Yeah, this red deer is definitely relaxing over in the
this
fjords.
looks like it's real.
I think it's no wait, this isn't a fjord. No, 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 it's an AI one. No, I thought
It's
no, no,
got
no. There's
whiskers coming down on one side.
deer do have somewhat whiskers. A wide variety of different species of herbivores do.
I assume this picture's from
But
here.
no, no, that's over in like probably Mongolia, not Norway. There are reindeer herders over in Mongolia. And you do have it where certain parts of Mongolia the reindeer are native to. So it's also adjacent to certain
Wait,
peace. Eastern Russia, east of Siberia.
Semesta. Litter size for what? The reindeer?
Usually, it's just a single calf. Twins are possible, but they're very rare. Twins are more common with moose, and triplets are also possible with moose. Or
She also asked, do they migrate?
They do, but much smaller distances compared to different subspecies of North American caribou, especially like over with certain herds up in Alaska, as well as different parts of the Yukon, and can make an over 1,000 mile trek or pushing somewhere around like what 1,800 kilometers. Um, when it comes to, I think, mountain reindeer, they might make certain 100 or 150 mile treks, or what is that pushing? Some around like 250 kilometers. That is, if I'm not mistaking it, for the moose trek over the moose migration that occurs over in Sweden annually. Now, semi-domesticated reindeer, they also make their own types of migrations. No, it's not real. You're what on earth? It's like you tried to put Yosemite, but I'm not sure what that's supposed to say. And then it misspelled park and national. Um,
It's interesting. I pulled some type of deer up for you before, and there were tons of pictures with people dressing them up.
yeah, and like the coloring is wrong on the caribou or the reindeer in this instance. I like how they lit up his antlers, but um, yeah, that almost resembles Yellowstone more, not so much Yosemite. Except like the tree landscape underneath. It's not really down near the major waterfall. I mean, it's a cozy sort of an appearance. Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, it's one of them. Probably over northern Norway. Yeah, yeah, like their different pigments, like just their fur colors. I think it looks pretty good. It's interesting how like it's very white towards the front of the snouts, and then a bit beige or lighter brown further back. Yeah, this is probably an authentic one. Probably also occurring during the rut, considering he's fully shed.
John Doe said, "Hello, hope everyone is doing well. And I wasn't feeling well, so I came here, and I'm really enjoying this."
Okay, well, welcome, Therapod. Thanks. And yeah, I mean that's a good looking picture. Oh yeah, that's yeah, this is definitely. I think it's yeah, I think this is also coming from northern Norway. I don't think this is an artificial picture. Um, Yeah, it's like they do sleigh rides in the region. There aren't any brown bears or wolves, at least at the moment, that inhabit these regions. They did historically. Um, I guess I forget about certain forested ecosystems, especially as you head further north in certain parts of Norway. And it is quite interesting, like how you can be in very southern part of the country, and it's pretty much bare, but it's usually like in the higher alpine regions of the mountainous areas. So, um, so in some cases, it can be a bit more forested further north. Yeah, I think when it comes to also like the brown bear population over in Norway, it's quite small. Unfortunately, there's also not a lot of genetic variety within those individuals. Um, I think also within Trondelag itself, I think there's somewhere around what's maybe 10 to 20 bears in the whole area. I mean, that's a large sparse of land with that few bears. Also, wolves are very few in number too. But also, when it comes to northern Norway, bears are pretty much non-existent at this point. There was an instance with a polar bear showing up on the coast of Norway, northern Norway, about I think it was over in Finnmark as well, in 1951, I think, or maybe it was 1952. Um, and I believe it ended up. Uh, I'm not sure. Did it leave or was it shot? I don't remember, but it did show up on the coast, which is extremely rare. for polar bears to show up on the coast of um, northern mainland Europe. So usually you might see them pop up on Iceland occasionally, which is still very rare. But it's usually just Svalbard.
John Doe said, if it's winter and that's a reindeer slash caribou, then they are female males. What? Female males lose their antlers in the winter.
They do. Yeah, later on to the season, like around, well, I guess it could be early on to the season too. If you're looking at early January, late January, also depends on their um nutritional conditions. But I'm also thinking of it like by wild reindeers aspect, and not necessarily like the semi-domesticated herds. However, there was an instance, I think, back in 2017 or 2019. Now, this wasn't over in Norway, but it was over in some part of Russia. It might have been northern Siberia or a bit further east. And you had it where I swear, like a few thousand reindeer, or semi domesticated reindeer at least, starved to death. So that doesn't really have anything to do with the antler loss. So that just hit my mind.
So are
But
these pictures here or are they somewhere else?
yeah, I think a lot of these are over in Norway. They have their annual sled rides, but it's possible over in Alaska or some part of Canada this might occur. I just have no idea of where. There are definitely places you can go over to feed and pet reindeer, but I'm not sure when it comes to riding them. I think it's because in North America we don't have herds, vast herds of semi-domesticated reindeer. I'm also not sure how long supposedly they have been semi-domesticated for, at least 2 to 3,000 years.
Is this real?
No. No, it's not real. Almost like, yeah, somewhere in Canada, and that's a very short Norwegian. Yeah, I like that guy. Yeah, I mean, he's got a nice set of antlers too. Yeah, he's just relaxing. I swear that's from a video game. Oh, right. I'm a bit shocked about how
Wait,
hey,
I
there's
forgot what this was even about.
yeah, so we've got 84% of the observations were of roe deer, so crossing the wildlife crossing over the highway. The red fox, so they're quite common in the area. Moose and red deer were pretty rare, only about 8% of the recorded crossings, which is interesting considering. Well, I guess you could say it's not too surprising, but when it comes to moose, there's somewhere around 15 to 20,000 moose in Trondelag, Norway, which is like the county this is taking place in. Um, but in total, when it comes to the moose population in Norway, I think there's at least around 200,000 moose. There could be more. Um, but yeah, that is it's definitely a very large amount of snowfall in this area. Especially you head, like, to southern Norway, I mean, it receives snow, but it's not as much. Hey, here's a little roe deer. They're very, I mean, small, especially compared to, um, different subspecies of red deer, the reindeer in this instance. They might, in some cases, not reach much more than, like, 120 pounds or pushing maybe, 50 to 55 kilograms. But, in some cases, I don't know, they almost remind you of well, I guess the musk deer too, but I was gonna think of like a rabbit or like a lagomorph for some reason. Maybe it's also that winter coat. It gives a very fluffy appearance.
Well, if
So,
it's snowing out, keep the lagomorph away from Les Strauss.
yeah, definitely. Well, this guy too, because he's like, hey, now you have fat. In fact, he was in Norway and well, that was a red deer, however.
He ate a red deer there?
Yeah,
That wasn't where he ate the lagomorph?
no, that was Labrador. That was Canada. So the study confirms that the wildlife overpass indeed serves its intended purpose by facilitating wildlife movement across the highway and contributing to habitat connectivity. However, the long-term impact of the overpass on local cervid populations remains uncertain. Continued vegetation growth on the overpass may enhance its attractiveness by providing both resources and shelter, potentially increasing its future usage, says Lars Rod Eriksson, researcher at NINA. So, to fully assess the long term ecological value of the overpass, the experts at NINA recommends resuming monitoring efforts in the coming years, including studies evaluating wildlife usage of the overpass in relation to changes in local population densities and landscape development on both sides of the highway. Oh, are there more?
So, what other animals go over this?
Oh, it's just them.
Oh,
Well, it said moose, red foxes. Doesn't seem any reindeer so far. I think reindeer also like to be a bit further away from development. Maybe it's like Greater Trondheim. I'm not sure. Um,
is this a moose in Norway?
Oh, and, it could be, but I do recall, like, white moose definitely showing up in Sweden. But looking at the overall build, it does have that, like, more northern, Eurasian moose subspecies sort of a build. It's definitely a very healthy individual. Yeah, this is definitely during the summer. This could be, like, maybe, late June, early July, definitely coming in. So he's getting the calcium and phosphorus that he needs to grow those antlers. It's definitely different from, like, different subspecies of moose over in the United States, Canada. Even if you're looking at different subspecies over in northern China, Mongolia, Russia, main or I guess continental Europe.
I've got my mind on my food and my food on my mind.
Yeah, he does. And I still do not know where specifically this picture came from. I don't think it's Canada, but
It's Norway.
um, hmm. Well, that one definitely. This is a calf. Yeah, he's not full. She. No, it's a he. You can see he just lost his antlers. You can see those little nubs just above the eye socket. It's almost like when we were looking at the Vega ceratopsian dinosaur from 76 million year old Alberta, Canada, in the Cretaceous, and he has those little tiny horns above his eye sockets. It's just like this moose just lost his antlers. Um, that's pretty interesting. He's definitely curious too because he has his, ears pointing forward. So he's not really, in under much of a threat. He's just sort of curious as to what's in front of him, possibly person maybe that's in the boat taking a picture,
I'll try
but
to blow this one up.
looks pretty healthy too. Hmm. So it seems to be what a mother and maybe her 2 calves, and they're still staying with her. Whoa! Did they just lose their antlers too? Are they both, males or bulls? Like younger males? Huh. Maybe they're a bit annoyed, but it is winter, so they're just munching on different like willow twigs and not getting a lot of nutrients at this point. But it is interesting. I mean, when it comes to moose and different species of deer in general, so members of cervidae, especially in the northern hemisphere during the winter, their bodies are putting a lot more emphasis into lean muscle mass. So, like converting, also taking like or extracting traces of calcium and well, focusing on the calcium from their bones and
Okay, their faces are cracking me up.
transferring it over into the muscle. What on earth? Is this This sort of reminds me, it's like somebody took one of those Ice Age South American macrocanid um, herbivores. So this animal existed over in like Brazil, Uruguay, about 400,000 years ago. Actually, pretty recent, in the past 20 to 30,000 years, and then combined it with like a what?
John Doe said, I recently became a volunteer at the American Museum of Natural History, and they said to me that the moose is evolving into a more aquatic animal because of the teeth are showing signs of fusion.
Um, well, moose have been semi-aquatic for a long time. I mean, even Alcis alcis, this specific species, it's been around since the Ice Age or the Pleistocene, so well over 12,000 years ago. But, um, that is interesting, becoming more aquatic. I'll definitely look into that. Um,
Wait,
hmm.
I forgot, which one is the American Museum of Natural History?
Well, I think it's the one over in New York. I don't believe it's the one over in the Smithsonian, but I think it can be referred to as that name too. Sometimes it's confused me. Hmm. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. Oh, actually, let's look up that other creature though. Macrocenia. Macracenia. They're like a long neck sort of. Okay. And one of their main sources of food is aquatic plants. It's where they obtain a lot of their sodium. I'd say most of it, especially when it comes to the males and they're having to intake a large amount for growing their antlers, but becoming more aquatic. But you're also mentioning the fusion of the teeth. So that's interesting. But this is the animal it partially reminded me of, at least those two, as well as like a donkey and like a fluffy white-tailed deer in North America to an extent, and also just certain other moose individuals. Is very likely. So this is the older reconstruction of the Macrocenia, which I still think looks good. It's just that further analyses on the skull structure seems to be, or um, it just seems to have come out where it was more of like the snout of a moose, so having a very um, bloated or just inflated nasal area. And also, it's very possible that this animal might have been somewhat semi aquatic, but tends to be reconstructed as just being quite terrestrial. Also, depending on where you were in different parts of Ice Age South America, it was also a very warm climate like it is today. But, well, okay, yeah, that's, I wouldn't necessarily say exactly like some of the other reconstructions of Macrauchenia, but um, this is definitely very unique. It's a bit freaky. There, okay, this one's um closer to what I was thinking of.
John Doe said, yeah, New York City.
Okay, yeah, so it's where the paleontologist Mark Norell is. Um, yeah, it is odd though. Oh, so when it comes to this animal, this was one of the larger species of parasodactyl mammals that existed in Ice Age South America.
Is that better?
Yeah, so this is a bit more closely related to animals such as rhinos, horses, and tapirs than it is to giraffes, bears, wolves, people, elephants. At least you could say mastodons and mammoths at this time. It did coexist with different species of saber-toothed cats, and probably even came across certain large species of bears as well. But this animal was an herbivore, so it was likely feeding on different species of shrubs at this time. Though whether or not it was a grazer, I might have to see like what teeth specifically we have found of this animal. It might have been a mixed forager, so maybe feeding on both grasses and shrubs. But it did go extinct at the end of the Ice Age around 12,000 years ago. Whoa. Hmm. This animal might be a bit of a grazer, but I can't see directly its internal molars.
Hmm.
It is interesting. It almost has like a whale sort of a skull structure to it, at least of earlier species of whales or even certain types of dolphins today, despite being quite distantly related. I mean, whales are artiodactyls. Yeah, it literally looks like one of the earlier Eocene members of the whale family, or I guess you could say later Eocene, and into the early Oligocene. That is interesting. Okay, this animal might be a browser, so like feeding on different species of leaves. Also, does have a bit of an elongated back vertebrae.
Well, this is interesting. This looks slightly different.
Ooh. Yeah, okay. We have found completely intact teeth. Hmm. Yeah, I think it might be a bit of a grazer. It-
Uh, John Doe said, Mark recently passed away due to a stroke complications.
Um, well, that was, I guess a bit of a shock. No, I just remember, like, he would, go over, like, different species of especially micro not necessarily, yeah, you could say Microraptor, especially, like, Sinornithosaurus. He was definitely a, um, big fan of different species of smaller theropods from, like, early Cretaceous China, so even Microraptor, wide variety of the Paravest lineage. So, I mean, he would go over other species of Coelurosaurs and other dinosaurs too, but that seemed to be, like, his main expertise. Um But yeah, this is really well preserved. I think this is either like early 1900s or possibly late 1800s when this occurred, considering we've technically known in the paleo field macrokenia for some time. It's just changed quite a bit in the past couple of decades when it comes to the entire reconstruction. So let's see, was there anything else? Is that it? Oh, okay. Okay, well, if anybody would like to put any comments about prehistoric or current animals in the chat, please do so. I'm trying to think of what else. Hmm.
Any
No.
other animals that would cross that?
Um, no, at this point, I can't think of, especially of any decent size, anybody else that would be over here. Now, you could say Arctic foxes do have quite a large home range within like mainland northern Europe. So it's possible you might see them in this area. Though, considering the density of red foxes it's making it out to be, Arctic foxes really like to avoid red foxes, considering you can have it where red foxes will hunt Arctic foxes. They're much larger. Oh, he's definitely tagged.
Oh, I
So
didn't see that when I found it.
I'm kind of wondering, like, is this
Might not
later
be.
into the fall?
These guys are tagged too.
Oh, oh yeah, wow. They're pups or kittens, as you would call a fox. Yeah, you also had it where Arctic foxes were roaming different parts of the northern hemisphere during the ice age as well.
Oh, well, this is fall bard. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Of course it is. Yeah, so he's definitely coexisting with a couple thousand polar bears in the region. It's a very densely populated island for the bears. I mean, you have they're also coming and going from the area, but he probably scavenges from whale carcasses occasionally.
Somebody just ate some eggs.
Yep, he definitely looks like that. Or it could be a she. I mean, you have where the mothers are consistently going after different species of um, migratory seabirds and bring it to
John
their
John Doe asked, "What inspired your fascination with prehistoric animals?"
um well, it definitely goes back like to when I was 2, 3, and it was a mixture of seeing the Land Before Time, Jurassic Park, looking at several different types of also just a bit more like in-depth books about dinosaurs in general. I really didn't like it when it was just showing different pictures. Like, I never understood the thing with specifically picture books and dinosaurs because I wanted to obtain more information about these animals. And then even when it came to current animals in general, you had it where there was Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, like the series that started in like 1963, and as well as like Wild America. What else? Like Nature's Great Events and Planet Earth also played a role into it, but also like different books about current animals too. It was a bit more challenging, I'd say, with the current animals to find in-depth information. Like it wasn't until like I went to certain libraries, but also having to just find in-depth studies later on did I finally find where there was all this. at least in my view, hidden information because I was getting kind of annoyed when it came to the documentaries in general as to how little of information they were putting out to the public. Yeah, so also came to a point where I was 14, 15, and I was the intern to the curator of paleontology at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. And basically, I would teach throughout the week in the Paleo Hall about the different prehistoric animals within that specific exhibit, and as well, like even comparing them with current animal behavior. Um, just also mentioning like the different scientists that made discoveries and describe them as well, because you have it where there are different zoologists, paleontologists, ecologists that they might not have necessarily, like, discovered the animal, plants, or, um, I guess focusing on the animals, but they did eventually name that specific species or, um, made different discoveries on the overall morphology or maybe the behavior, just the anatomy of that specific creature. But, so, yeah, I think when it came to also, certain instances where like, I thought I had to, like, take a break from, like, the different fields in general, and I'm talking about, like, when I was 8 or 9 years old, and, yeah, that was definitely not very pleasant. Like, I thought, like, going on to a Transformers phase was a good idea, and it really wasn't. Um so, yeah, I just immediately, like, just hopped back onto, different species of dinosaurs and also started going in more into depth. Um, yeah, I'm trying to, think of what else. Also, just, simply, like, my family taking me to the museum and zoo several times a week when I was 3, 4, 5. Oh, yeah, and I also um think like back when I was what 13 and I had it where I was taking different school teachers to the museum and giving them like a 3-hour long tour of the exhibit. So um, that was yeah shortly before like I started continuously teaching in at the museum. Trying to think of something else.
You mean other than kicking you out because you were doing
Oh yeah, that was another thing was that it came to a point where I was over passing the hours for volunteering.
no, for
Well,
your
also,
age.
well, yeah, for my age specifically. But there was something else. I think also when it came to, I think I had it in certain instances where I started despising documentaries in some cases, not necessarily for like just like the animals in general, but they kept pushing certain or basically like the same political narratives. And I'm just like, I don't understand. This is supposed to be just showing like the different elephant herds, going to depth about, how they feed, migrate in different parts of like Botswana, Tanzania, South Africa. Same thing with like reindeer herds over in Alaska or Canada. And um, I think, like, I had it where I didn't even wanna touch, like, certain animals, like polar bears, which are, like, one of my favorite creatures of, the animal kingdom in general, especially when it comes to the mammals. But, I just finally had to go into depth, and then I found out about, like, the polar bear specialist group that was doing more in-depth research into what's actually going on with the polar bears, and a bunch of this, propaganda going on with them or making out like they were consistently dying or, like, especially of starvation, they can't hunt the seals, and it turned out that much of that was false, and in many cases, when you see a starving polar bear, it's because it's suffering from a type of muscle cancer that they usually catch. Well, certain individuals are known for catching.
How do you catch a muscle?
Well, I guess it can be somewhat genetic. Um, yeah, not really, or it's just simply hunting. Like really, that was the big problem for polar bears in The mid 1900s was just simply overhunting in different parts of the Arctic and the subarctic. Because you can have where polar bear populations can reach as far south as certain areas of like Newfoundland and Labrador, or Newfoundland if you're talking about Canada, the eastern part of the country. And then like over in Europe, like it's basically unheard of for polar bears to like at all reach the mainland, except like that one incident like hundreds of years. I believe I might have to double check that though. Like that 1950s incident over in mainland Norway. And then you have smaller populations over in like northern Russia specifically. Then obviously Alaska. Um, I can't think of anything else. Okay, so thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Let's see. So happy International Hadrosaur Day. And remember, that nothing is better than all animals all the time.